Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Travelers Championship DFS Tactics Show. Per usual, on a Wednesday evening, we're going to take our final look at the forecast for Cromwell, Connecticut. We're going to take a look at the prices. We're going to take a look at some projected ownerships. And of course, we're going to make some lineups to help you optimize and finalize your DFS slate for the Travelers this week. And at the end of the show, we'll cover the 2025 Picks Challenge between Gabe and I. We have a lot to get into. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier this week I posted some research regarding previous winners of the Travelers Championship, some patterns that they all shared, and players in the field this week who also fit those patterns. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. So that will be out later this evening. If you want to see those pieces of content, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. I can't recommend it enough. And if you are following him over on social media, you're going to be able to see our detailed write-ups of the 2025 Picks Challenge. I know I go through it at the end of the show on Wednesdays, but if you want to see our detailed reasoning for each pick that we make week after week, then go make sure you're following him over on X and subscribe to that article of his. You really are missing out if you're not subscribed to it. Then lastly, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you. I see a couple of you in there already, so I'll get to you momentarily. But please fill out the poll question. I've got that typed up and ready to go. Give me your thoughts on that. Who's your winner this week? Who are you targeting? Staying away from? All of that. Would love to hear from you. And as always, if you're not able to catch the show live, drop your opinions and thoughts in the comments. I'll always get to those as well. But we have a lot to get into. I want to get into it and make sure I cover everything. So let's dive right in. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2025 Travelers Championship. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Wednesday evening with the super forecast over at Windfinder. Good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping into chat. Much appreciated. Hello, Governor. Very good. I approve of the salutations there. Hello, Governor. You have 38% Harmon and Thomas. One of those, well, actually, I like both of those players, as we'll see throughout this evening. I kind of shied away from one, but I am all in on one of those two players. So you and I are very, very similar this week, Phil, in that regard. Before I get too much further into the show or before I get rambling on, let me post the poll question for this evening. And you're going to see this question kind of posed in a different way at the end of the show between Gabe and I in our Picks Challenge. But which of these U.S. Open disappointments are you most confident in rebounding this week? Now, I know there were several disappointments for last week at the U.S. Open. Understand, I only have four options or four options to give in a poll question, or at least in terms of answer. So I went with the four most projected owned players or popular players. You know, and your definition of disappointment might be different than mine, but these are four players that missed the cut last week at the U.S. Open. Which are you most confident is going to rebound this week? Is it Patrick Cantlay? Is it Justin Thomas? Is it Sepp Straka, or is it Tommy Fleetwood? Of course, I'll give my answer at the end of the show if it isn't obvious as we go through this evening. Looking at the forecast for Cromwell, Connecticut, you see that we have some wind picking up throughout the day tomorrow. I do want to bring to your attention that they got a lot of rain Tuesday. So the course is going to be pretty darn soft. Maybe not as soft as Oakmont was, especially Sunday after the rain delay there. But the course is going to be pretty darn soft at TBC River Highlands. So I want you to be aware of that. We have some wind picking up in the afternoon tomorrow. And it looks like Friday is going to be quite a difficult day. Sustained winds into the mid-teens. Gusts maybe up into the 30s, especially Friday morning. It looks like it's going to be a very, very difficult day Friday. But because this is a no-cut event, we don't really have a wave advantage that we're going to focus on, since every player makes the cut. Now, if you are playing Showdown for tomorrow, it looks like you are going to have a humongous advantage if you're teeing off early. So if you are playing round 1 Showdown, I would target as many early tee time players as you can afford. As many as you like. But try to get all 6 if you can, at least 5 of 6, because it does appear that the easier part of the day tomorrow is early. Granted, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to cheat what time they are starting. I see a 10:35 a.m. That might be the 8:50. Okay, so there are a few, teeing off maybe at 9 or so. I would argue, like I said, to get as many of the earliest tee times in your round 1 Showdown lineups as possible, considering this forecast. But in terms of the total week or week-long competitions, tournament-long competitions, we're not going to be looking at anything in terms of wave advantage, since every player is going to make the cut this week in Cromwell, Connecticut. And if we zoom out very quickly at the extended look at the forecast, Saturday looks great. Very little wind. High of 80. Looks just immaculate. However, there does appear to be some rain moving in overnight, Saturday into Sunday morning, which could cause some issues as well. So we'll have to be on the lookout for that for anyone playing, say, weekend, round 3, round 4 showdowns, things of that nature. But for our intents and purposes, looking at the week-long or tournament-long competitions, we're not going to be looking at anything in terms of a wave advantage since everybody makes the cut. Just do note that the wind is supposed to pick up throughout the day tomorrow. So playing round 1 showdown, you'll want to enter as many early tee time players as possible. All right, with that, I'm going to exit that. We're going to take a very, very quick look at wind performance, considering tomorrow afternoon and all of Friday looks to be rather challenging in terms of wind. So in moderate and windy conditions, going back to the beginning of 2024, your top performers have been Scotty, Rory, Mav McNeely, Xander, Colin Morikawa, Sung Jae, Hideki, Russell Henley, Sam Burns, and Tommy Fleetwood. Those are your top 10 in terms of moderate and windy total performance. Other end of the spectrum, players who have not played as well in the wind: Matthew Pavone, Adam Hadwin, Homa, Tom Kim. I go through this every time. Tom Kim has actually played fairly well in the windiest of windy conditions. It's his moderate that he has stumbled, and I always use moderate and windy, so take that for what you will. I'm just showing you as the viewer. Ricky, Austin Eckroat, Nick Dunlap, Cam Davis, Brian Campbell, Cameron Young, Gary Woodland, Stephen Yeager. See, these are some of the players who have not played as well in moderate and windy conditions over the past year and a half. All right, enough of that. We got a lot to get into, but I did want to show you the wind performance if you are wanting to factor that in, because I did not when I made the mixed condition model. So speaking of, we'll move to the mixed condition model for Cromwell, Connecticut, TBC River Highlands this week. I'm going to start with 10% off the tee, and I'm using the filter Pete Dye courses. This is Sawgrass. This is TBC River Highlands. This is Harbor Town. This is the Stadium course, Amex. All of these places, Pete Dye designs his courses in such a way where you have to choose whether you want to be aggressive off the tee, take on some trouble, but you are rewarded with a good tee shot with a very easy shot into the green, or if you play conservative off the tee, you are left with a much more difficult approach into the green. So there is certainly a skill set to playing Pete Dye courses. 10% off the tee, Pete Dye courses, 15% approach. I toyed with putting this at 20%, but I wanted to make sure I incorporated a couple other things in the mixed condition model. So I have this at 15%, but Pete Dye always rewards good iron play. 15% approach, 10% in total putting. And you'll notice this is only the last 24 rounds for this season. I went back and looked at some of the historical data, or particularly the past champions of TBC River Highlands and the Travelers. A lot of them have come in with a very, very hot putter. Whether or not they are good putters in general, Scotty I don't think has ever been classified as a good putter, but even by his standards, he was pretty hot with the putter, at least by his standards. If you take a look at the Travelers last year, yes, he lost 6 at Pinehurst, the tournament before, but Scotty was on a roll with his putter last year before coming to the Travelers and winning. Same for Keegan in 2023. Shoot, let me sort this by price. Keegan in 2023 had been pretty darn good with the putter leading into the Travelers. You see the Travelers there? You see his putting form coming in. And there were several examples of this. I'm only showing you the past 2 champions just to give you an idea. So that's why I didn't do a whole lot of talking about putting this week. I mainly used the bent and Poa annua, and that is a part of this mixed condition model. 5% is on bent and Poa annua greens. This is TBC River Highlands, Detroit Golf Club, and one other, Silverado, host of the Fortinet. So those 3 courses, at least per the GCSAA, list or have bent and Poa annua greens listed as their surface type. So I definitely didn't want to ignore that in case we have any specialists on this surface. But more importantly, I noticed for the players, particularly the champions of past Travelers Championships, they had been hot with the putter. So 10% in total putting in the last 24 rounds. Talked about 5% bent and Poa annua. That's what this is. This is going back to 2023 to make sure I have enough rounds to make it statistically significant. 10% in fairways. The distance is not a factor at all here at TBC River Highlands, but a lot of the defense of the course is the rough. Now, it's not going to be as difficult per se as Oakmont. Obvious statements are obvious. I mean, Oakmont's a U.S. Open venue and all that. But one of the defenses of TBC River Highlands is this long, thick rough. And it's going to get longer and thicker with all the rain they've had in Cromwell. So I want to make sure I'm playing guys that know how to hit fairways, even if they're clubbing down to do it. I want to make sure players are playing from the fairway. 10% fairways gained. Again, last 24 rounds, they need to be hot with finding fairways lately. 10% good drives gained. Again, using the same thought process and idea behind using the Pete Dye filter for off the tee. I'm using it for the good drives gained. Pete Dye rewards players for being aggressive off the tee. And if a player decides to be conservative, I want to make sure that they are skilled enough to hit greens if they take a more conservative approach off the tee. There's an art form to playing Pete Dye courses. So 10% good drives gained, Pete Dye courses. 15% opportunities gained. I know we didn't talk a lot about this week, but I did mention it throughout the week, how I think this is going to be pretty easy, especially with all the rain that they've gotten this week. It's going to be very, very soft. It's going to be very receptive. In a no-cut event, these professionals, these top-tier professionals, are going to just flag hunt. So I want to see who is going to give themselves the most opportunities, and who has done that, recently. I am using the filter easy relative to par. You can make an argument to just look at opportunities gained in the recency. Wouldn't hate that, but I do think this is going to play pretty easy. So I use that filter, and I just want to see the players who are going to give themselves the most opportunities. I do think this is going to become close to a birdie fest. If I had to guess, I would set the over-under, and I don't know what Vegas's over-under for winning score is, but I would set it at probably 24.5. I really think this is going to be pretty easy, even with Thursday afternoon and all of Friday being pretty windy. The weekend looks fantastic. They're supposed to get more rain on Saturday night into Sunday. They could have ball in hand on Sunday. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty darn easy. 15% opportunities, 10% birdies or better gained. Yeah, opportunities are great, but you got to convert them. That's why I have quite a bit in putting, and who just converts well on easy courses, who can go low, especially when scoring is easy, who can go the lowest and low. So 10% birdies or better gained when rounds are easy. Finish off the mixed condition model, 10% par 4s, 5% in the specific length, 400 to 450. We noted this throughout the week. The par 3s don't matter here at all, which is quite surprising for me, considering this is a par 70 with only 2 par 5s. You would think the par 3s, most of the time, if you have a par 70 with 4 par 3s, they would contribute a whole lot in terms of strokes gained. Not the case here at TPC River Highlands. It really is all about the par 4s. And with only 2 par 5s, you don't want to put a whole lot of attention into those either. And I'm singling out 400 to 450 because that is where the majority of the par 4s fall here at Cromwell. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. Hopefully I've given you some insights as to my thought process into why I built the model the way I did. Perhaps some areas where I might be weak. If this plays tougher than I think, I'm certainly going to be weak to that. I am hedging that this is going to be really darn easy. So if it's even average, I'm going to be pretty soft to that. Because I think it's going to be easy, I don't have any around the green factored in. So if around the green matters, I'm going to be soft to that. I don't think distance will, but if distance matters, I'll be weak to that. But those are some of the areas I could see myself struggling if the tournament does not play the way I expect it to. So with all of that rambling out of the way, let's go ahead to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings for the Travelers this week. And I apologize. I'm supposed to have that sorted on my rankings. I was sorted on the price board. So let's fix that. My rankings for the Travelers this week. And a quick reminder for returning viewers, for your information, if you are a new viewer, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The Fantasy National rank is based on the mixed condition model that we just went over, the metrics, percentages, filters that we just talked about. Fantasy National will spit out a ranking based on that. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value at how well they have played that course over the past 5 years. You see Patrick Cantlay has played very, very well around TPC River Highlands, so his course value is extremely low, which is good, whereas somebody like Colin Morikawa has struggled around here, so his course value is very high. And then we are playing DFS. Projected ownerships come into or factor into my rankings. These are ownerships from Gabe and his deluxe version of his article. So again, you are really missing out if you are not subscribed to his article, because you are able to get these projected ownerships earlier in the day if you are subscribed to that. But these are Gabe's projected ownerships, and he's done pretty darn well with them in the 2 or 3 months that we've been double checking him. So anyway, my rankings for the Travelers this week: Patrick Cantlay, maybe a slight surprise. But Patrick Cantlay is my number 1 player. He has played so very well around TPC River Highlands. And I do have course history being a decent factor this week, so he is rising. You see, just by the numbers, he was 8th. He's really rising thanks to this course value. Sung Jae, 2nd, and he's rising thanks to his very, very unique, or being a unique option overall in contests and especially at his price point. So Sung Jae is catapulting quite a bit. You see, he was 7th by the numbers, but thanks to this very low ownership, he is rising to 2nd. Aaron Rai 3rd. Scotty falls to 4th. You see, number 1 really by the numbers. He is 40% projected owned. I would not be surprised if this creeps closer to 50% owned. And that's why he is falling, because we are playing DFS. We're trying to find unique options. So Scotty has fallen to 4th. And Robert McIntyre, Bobby Mack, rounds out my top 5. Sepp Straka, Akshay Bhatia, Shane Lowry, Russell Henley, and Siwoo Kim round out my top 10. Just very quickly, Phil, because you mentioned the 2 players, you see Harman just missed at 11th, Justin Thomas 13th. So certainly on the right, or very, very close, I should say, in terms of cracking my top 10. I like both of these players. And as we go through the price board, it'll probably become apparent which one I am more interested in. Enough of rambling on my rankings. You can always argue the ordering. But no real surprise here in my top 10. I'm actually a little bit surprised Harman didn't climb into the top 10 with his stellar performance historically at TBC River Highlands, but he is garnering a little bit of attention. And you see, he didn't rate out the best because his irons have been a little faulty lately. He's been very good on Pete Dye courses, though, so do note that. Okay, with that, let's sort on the price board, figure out where our fellow contestants seem to be going, and then how we can maneuver around them at various points on the price board. In the 5 digits, I'll say the 10Ks, but in the 5 digits, we have 4 players this week. We have Scotty at 13.3, Rory at 11.5, Xander 10.8, Colin Morikawa 10.2. Now, I'm going to go out on a big limb here, and I know I'm facetious a lot of times, but this is a pretty big limb. I'm full fading Scotty this week, and it's not the fact that I hate Scotty. I mean, shoot, he was number 1. He should be number 1 numerically. 4th total. This is a game theory fade. If Scotty falls outside the top 5, if he finishes outside the top 5 this week, which is not, nowhere guaranteed by any means, considering how well he's played lately. But if he falls outside the top 5, I'm gaining so much on our fellow contestants that I'm willing to take that chance. I wasn't last week because a U.S. Open, anything can happen. All of these players, Scotty himself will get 4 rounds, but so will every single one of these players. Every single one of these players will get 4 rounds to rack up a lot of birdies and a lot of points. So I just don't think Scotty is worth the ownership. Not only that, and this is a little foreshadowing for later, but Scotty's price to me was really prohibitive because we don't have a 5K region this week, and I don't like a whole lot in the 6s, as you can see by some of these rankings. So this is the boldest take I can give this week, but it is true. I am full fading Scotty, and my week's probably going to be over tomorrow. But in the off chance that he has a bad week, a down week by Scotty's standards being, outside the top 10 or top 15, I'm going to sit really, really good so long as my other guys, my players perform well. So instead of trying to beat Scotty lineups or what's the better way to say this? Instead of trying to get unique off of, or from our fellow contestants trying to find the one-off or two-off guys, I'm just going to go in a complete different direction. I would, instead of zag and all that, I was going to do a different vowel in there. I'm just going in a complete different direction. I am completely out on Scotty because of this, just ridiculously high ownership. Again, this is a game theory fade, considering I think he'll probably be closer to 50%. Elsewhere in the 10Ks, if Rory is indeed at 10%, or, right around 10%, I would be hard-pressed not to put him in a lineup. He finished top 15 last week, even though he was a full fade for me. He ended up playing fairly okay. I still worry about his irons. They haven't been great. Not to mention, all the off-the-course stuff that he's, dealing with, media and all that. A very, a unique top-tier talent is not something you want to ignore. So I'll probably throw Rory into a lineup just because he's probably going to sit at this 10% ownership. But I'm not in love with it. In fact, I'm not really in love with anything in the 10Ks. If I go into the 10Ks, I'm probably most often going to Xander, although I am disappointed he is the second most projected owned player in the 10Ks, and it looks like he's the second most projected owned throughout the entirety of the contest. But I'm just not in the 10Ks all that much. I'm really not. Part of that, again, is because we don't have a 5K, and I don't like much in the 6s. So that tells you exactly what kind of lineups I'm building. So I don't have a whole lot of, quote, studs this week. If I do, it is Xander. I'll squeeze Rory into a lineup. I'm out on Scotty. And I talked about this with Morikawa whenever we were talking about course values. But I'll go over to Fantasy National again very, very quickly. Morikawa has struggled here. He's not been great around TBC River Highlands. He did finish top 15 last year, but missed the cut in 2023, missed the cut in 2020, and then, a very middling 36th in 2019. He's not necessarily been great with the irons here either, which is Colin Morikawa's calling card. So I have a lot of concerns. He's better when it's difficult. I think it's going to be easy. I'm not there with Colin Morikawa this week. I'm just not. And the last thing, even though he's putt okay here, he was on a decent little run there at the Truist, PGA, the Memorial, but he lost 9 at the U.S. Open on the greens. He had 4 straight down tournaments with the putter earlier in the season. I'm just out on Morikawa. So because of that, like I mentioned, in the 10Ks, if I'm up here, it'll most likely be Xander. I will squeeze Rory into a lineup or two because this is just too little ownership for a premier player. So for me, it'll go Xander first, then Rory second in the 10Ks, in the 5 digits. I'm full fading Scotty, much to probably my demise this week. This is just too much ownership for me. It's a game theory fade. And then Morikawa, I have a lot of concerns with fitting at TBC River Highlands. Moving to the 9Ks, you ask if Ludwig's a sleeper. He is certainly one of the 2 pivots, seemingly, in the 9Ks. I don't know about sleeper, though, considering he was technically the lowest rated of them all in the 9Ks. There are 6 players: Cantley, Obear, Thomas, Straka, Burns, Hovland. Now, having said all that, I'm going to play every single one of these players in the 9Ks. If I'm not playing many 10Ks, then I am all about the 9s. Cantley, technically my number 1 rated player. I don't know if I would put him number 1, but he has been so very good around TBC River Highlands. His game is kind of hit and miss right now, but the irons are still there. You see how well he has done on Pete Dye Design, second off the tee, fairly or pretty good on good drives gained, 17th. He's been excellent at the length of par fours in general. He's a good putter on Benton Poa-annua. So there's a lot to like here with Patrick Cantlay. I am a little bit nervous that he has been pretty Jekyll and Hyde lately. Come on. Like he missed with the irons at the U.S. Open, missed at the PGA, but other than that, his irons have been very, very good. Putting, he has basically been in a pattern. Miss, gain, all the way up. He missed last time, so if the pattern falls, which is a silly thing to bank on, but pattern holds, he's going to gain this week with the putter. Like I said, he's generally better on bent and Poa. So I'm probably going to use way too much of Patrick Cantlay, to be honest with you. But I am going to be using Cantlay quite a bit. I'll use Ludwig. But he's probably the one player in the 9Ks, Phil, that I'm least excited about. He rated the lowest, sure. The irons haven't been there. He generally does go low when it's easy, like his win at the RSM. He hasn't been putting great lately. He's not particularly great, or hasn't been in a very small sample size on this surface. I don't know. I'm going to use him, but having said that, I play multiple lineups, so I can afford that luxury. And I'm certainly not using him often because I like Cantlay a lot more, and I like all of these other guys a whole lot more. So I will use the least of Ludwig. So take that information what you will, Phil. The answer to your question, 38% Harman and Thomas. I am all about some JT this week. I love JT. And I'm ready to get my heart broken. But I wrote about JT in the Picks Challenge with Gabe. He's got 2 straight top 5s here. You take driver out of his hand, which TBC River Highlands does quite a bit. It allows his creativity to come to light and shine. You actually see he's, in the last 24 rounds, he's top 5 in putting in this field. Like, he's been putting great. So it's the fairways. As you can see, he's almost last in fairways in his last 24 rounds. So I think getting the driver out of his hand is going to be a big benefit. So I love everything about JT this week. I like Sepp Straka quite a bit. I think he'll rebound from the U.S. Open as well. He was my fade last week. I didn't get much right from the U.S. Open, but I did say to fade these 2 players. I did not like Oakmont as a setup for these 2. I do think TPC River Highlands sets up better for these 2. Burns is on an incredible heater right now. I don't know how you can ignore him. If you're only playing one lineup, I can understand maybe skipping him, but he's been so hot lately, and like Ludwig, he is a pivot off of all of the other players in the 9K. So really, I think you probably need to roster Sam Burns, and we'll talk about Victor Hovland later on, but I like Victor as well. Coming off the 3rd at the U.S. Open, top 5 in irons. Even his putter's been okay. I know it doesn't look good there, but by Victor's standards, it's been okay. So in the 9Ks, I'm playing them all. I'm probably highest on Burns because of the ownership. I would just play, if the ownerships hold true at where they are here, I like Burns most, but I really like JT this week. I do. 2 straight top 10s at TBC River Highlands. Allows his creativity to shine, taking the driver out of his hand. I like a lot about JT. I like Cantlay quite a bit. I'll use him. Straka, Hovland. So there you go. Moving to the 8s. Tommy, Henley, Spawn, Keegan, Bobby Mack, Lowry, Spieth, Hideki, Ben Griffin. I want to like Ben Griffin. I do. Hard to argue when you talk about one of the hottest players in golf right now. Hard to argue anyone hotter than Ben Griffin. 4 straight tournaments where he's gained at least 2 with the irons. 4 straight tournaments where he's gained at least 3 on the greens. I mean, he's been electric. Absolutely electric. 4 straight top 10s. His bugaboo, I guess, he's not but POA well at all. And I mean at all. I could see him struggling Thursday and Friday because he is not very good in the wind, at least relative to others in the field. He's still positive total, but he certainly much prefers calm than windy. It's not a very big sample size, but he has not been good at the Travelers. He was almost DFL. I think there were 70 or 71 players last year. He was 67th. And then he missed the cut the year prior in a designated event. So he has not been good at the Travelers. He is generally not great on Pete Dye courses. 64th off the tee, 55th in good drives. Sorry, let me fix the page view. Griffin, 64th off the tee, and just off your screen, 55th in good drives. He's also garnering a lot of attention because he's playing so well. So this is a pretty easy fade for me, Phil. In the 8Ks, I'm going to Bobby Mack. Top 10 putter right now. Irons are hot. He's actually not garnering a whole lot of attention for some reason. Lowry could be interesting considering he finished 3rd here last year, I think. I think it was a top 5. I'm pretty sure it was 3rd. But, coming off of that miscut at Oakmont, a pretty ugly miscut at that. Not sure where he's at. I like Bobby Mack quite a bit. Quite a bit. So in the 8Ks, it's really Bobby Mack or nothing. I will sprinkle some Russell Henley. I will sprinkle some Keegan Bradley. But you see, those two are not particularly unique. So I'm not excited about them. Whereas Bobby Mack is, anywhere from 3 to 5% projected less ownership. So give me all the Bobby Mack in that instance. And then I just don't. Not excited about Spieth. Not excited about Hideki. Spawn, yeah, coming off the U.S. Open. I mean, he rates 6th per purely by the numbers, but he has been woeful. I mean, woeful at TPC River Highlands. And I think this is a big letdown spot for him coming off of that U.S. Open. I mean, big congratulations to him and all that stuff. It's life-changing. It's great for JJ Spawn. But I just see it as a letdown. Moving into the 7s, particularly the high 7s. Sungjae rated 2nd, but be aware that most of that is because he is so unique. Everybody is afraid of the irons for good reason. I mean, he has lost, I think, in 10 straight tournaments or something to that effect. And it's pretty ugly what Sungjae has done or not done. Yeah, I mean, was this 3, 6, 9, 11 straight tournaments going back to the API? But he's also gained off the tee in all 11 of those. The putter has been mostly good. He's also been pretty darn good at the Travelers. Finished 3rd last year. So maybe I was mixing up Lowry and Sungjae. I was. Sungjae was 3rd. Lowry was 9th. My apologies. So, you mentioned Cam Young. He finished 9th last year. Went, shot that 59. I don't know. I know he's really hot right now, but he's also the most popular player in the upper 7s by far. I mean, Berger at 75, but I consider this mid 7s, not upper 7s, Phil. In the upper 7s, it is Cameron Young that's getting all the attention. So I just, unless I am completely confident in that player, I try to avoid chalk lower in the price board. I'll probably dabble a Sungjae or two, because he's so good on Pete Dye courses. 6th off the tee, 6th good drives gained, 2nd in fairways, 5th in putting on this surface. Like, he loves everything about TBC River Highlands. The irons are just hideous right now, and that's what's given me a whole lot of pause. So I'll use him once or twice, but that's about it. And that's really it in the upper 7s. Like, Seawood might be worth a look at 10%. I was really high on him last week, and he was okay, not great. Again, Cameron Young has been playing really well the past couple of tournaments. He's actually 3rd in putting the past 24 rounds. So, I was talking up JT being 4th in putting. I mean, Cam Young is 3rd, but this I don't like. He generally doesn't like this surface either. Good drives gained, fairways gained. I know he went nuclear last year. I don't know. If you want to use him, I suppose it's fine. I would caution against it. A lot of it's because he's probably going to be pretty common for the price range, depending on what style of lineup you're building, Phil. Like, if you're building a balanced lineup and ignoring Scotty, maybe Xander, you could probably afford to take a Cameron Young if you're that high on him. But if you're going like Scotty, Cameron Young, or Xander, Hovland, Cameron Young, you're gonna be duplicating a whole lot of people, I think. Moving into the mid 7s, Aaron Rye rated 3rd. All about anytime you're talking about precision over distance, Aaron Rye is gonna rise in rankings, or at least my rankings. He's actually played Pete Dye courses very, very well. I think it's a very small sample size. The problem is with him and with Berger, their putters, as well as Justin Thomas and Sam Burns and Cameron Young have putt lately. The inverse is true for Ryan Berger. They haven't made anything. Rye, I think, lost something like 7 strokes on the greens last week. Berger struggled on the greens last week, but otherwise everything else for him, like Rye rated 5th, Berger rated 10th. There's a lot to like there. It's just, can you stomach a woeful putter at the moment? I'm willing to take that chance because all of these players are guaranteed 4 rounds. I also want to mention Luke Clanton, 7,400. Even though he doesn't have a whole lot of sample size, what he does have, I like for TBC River Highlands. I know, like last week, Rasmus Nergard Peterson didn't have a lot of sample size, but I liked the skill set for Oakmont. I like what I see from Luke Clanton for TBC River Highlands. Now, I know this place is bent and POA, but when Clanton is putt on bent, he's been good. You see, he's done his best work when it's been easy. I think TBC River Highlands is going to be really easy this week. He's actually not too bad in the wind. So I like quite a bit here, even though the results are kind of scattered. Like the Farmers, top 15, but this is a whole different course than Farmers. Farmers is driver, driver, driver. Cognizant is somewhat comparable because it's short and positional, but Cognizant, formerly the Honda, is very, very difficult, but he played well there. So I would give a long look to Luke Clanton this week, is what I'm getting at. Just give him a look, even if you don't play him. I think he'll be okay. Harmon, I really, really like this week as well, but let me show you why I got off of him, towards the end of today, Phil, because you asked about Harmon as well. Harmon has been very, very accurate. He always is. He's been very accurate. So that's nothing wrong there. But some of his good drives game numbers are not stellar because his irons have been pretty bad. So that gives me some pause. Now you see he finished third at the RBC Heritage, another Pete Dye design. Missed the cut at the Amex this year. But generally, Pete Dye designs he does very well, especially here. 4 straight top 10s for Brian Harman, 5th, 8th, 2nd, 9th. It's hard to argue that. So if you're a big believer in course history, Brian Harman is an absolute must-go-to. I shied away from Harman a little bit just because of the irons, but I'm going to use quite a bit of Harman. Don't mistake what I'm saying here. I do like Harman quite a bit with his course history. I am a little worried, much like, or in a very similar vein as Sung Jae, with the iron, the lack of in-form irons. Can you trust Minwoo? I would say no. This doesn't feel like a good Minwoo Lee fit, because he's all about, like, his big weapon is his driver, and that's quite mitigated here. But he did finish, I believe, 9th here last year. He has played Pete Dye designs extremely well. No, I'm sorry, that's Brian Harman. My apologies. Minwoo Lee has been okay on Pete Dye designs, 20th and 32nd. So I would go other places, but it's hard to argue a 4% Minwoo Lee considering he has all 4 days. But if you're at Minwoo, I would probably just try to find 100 and go to Luke Clanton if I were you, Phil. And then I'll get to Schmidt or Bez when we get to the 6s. And then to round out the low 7s, I talked about Brian Harman already. I'm going to use him a lot. But my favorite play this week is Harry Hall. And yes, he is pretty chalky for his price. But the more I looked at Harry Hall throughout this week, the more I was impressed. And the more I liked his skill set here. I know he doesn't have the greatest performance here at TBC River Highlands, but I also think he's in just much better form in general. 2nd in putting, top 10 in fairways in this field coming into this week. Plenty of opportunities. You think about his win at the ISCO, what used to be the Barbasol. That's a very easy track, easy course. So I like Harry Hall quite a bit. If Harry Hall does not play well this week, I will lose. He is going to be in a whole lot of my lineups. Also, don't mind Tom Kim, who finished runner-up here last year. He's starting to play a little bit better. I will use some Tom Kim as well. Showdown, can my one going off in the afternoon be Lowry? Decent in the wind. I mean, I don't hate it. But, I mean, he rated extremely well for me. Finished, tied for 9th here last year. I don't know. It's just, I have some reservations, Phil, considering how poorly he played at Oakmont. Like, it wasn't the fact that he missed, like, he bogeyed 70, the 35th or 36th, like his 17th or 18th hole. Like, he was out of it on Thursday. It was ugly. So I'm just going to take a wait and see approach on Shane Lowry. So that's all I can tell you for that. Then moving to the 6s, I mentioned how there's not a whole lot here that I like. There are 2 players garnering some attention. Bud Cauley, 10.5%. Andrew Novak, 10%. So I can't, in good conscience, recommend those players. I wouldn't actually recommend Novak based on his ranking. Like, Cauley kind of made some sense because of the irons, his in-form putter right now, but he is the chalkiest play in the 6Ks. So let me give you 2 names. 2 names in the 6Ks that are worth a look. The first is Lucas Glover. And again, I'm not in love with it. He has not been particularly good at TBC River Highlands. But this course doesn't require length. His putter has been really bad lately, so it's not great. You're playing him. You're playing the wily veteran that you think he can make a couple of putts, and that the irons come back to some semblance of what Lucas Glover was. Again, I'm not in love with this play by any means. But it's really the only kind of name that was decent in the 6Ks other than Kevin Yu. I will give a decent nod to Kevin Yu. And the reason being is that generally he's a very good ball striker. He's lost 4 in his last 5. So that's, honestly, it's quite worrisome. But he's not a very good putter, as you can see. But the putter is hot right now. Gained 6.5 at the PGA. Gained 5 at the in Toronto. You're playing Kevin Yu, one, for the uniqueness, but you're playing Kevin Yu on a bet of return to form or historical form with irons and hoping that the putter stays lukewarm, because it can fall off a cliff, as you can see here, very quickly. Losing 5.5 at the Century, lost 7 at the Canadian Open last year. So the putter can go ice cold at any moment. But the fact that it has been red hot lately, you're hoping it stays a little bit lukewarm and a return to what should be Kevin Yu's normal good ball striking. So I did want to mention Kevin Yu as well. But again, there isn't a whole lot in the 6Ks I like, and that is why I'm full fading Scotty. Would I go Schmid or Seabez in Showdown? I'm assuming this is round 1 Showdown. Seabez rated almost dead last, whereas Matty Schmid was a little bit more middling. The irons are in much better form right now. Actually, let me do the entire row. Even Matty Schmid's putter is better than Seabez's in the last 24 rounds. So, The one worry about Matty Schmid is he's never played TBC River Highlands. And that is, there is something to be said there that with this being a positional style course, he might not have the knowledge to know when he can be aggressive and when to lay back. That is somewhat of a concern. But if you're not worried about that, Phil, I would go Matty Schmid of those two. All right, with that, we are going to start making some lineups. I'll start with tiers contest, and then we'll move to our big GPP contest and start filling in some classic lineups. Tiers contest, for those who play tiers. Tier 1, Scotty, Rory, Xander. I'll just take Xander. Rory could be interesting. Like I said, Scotty's a full fade this week. It's a little bit different in tiers, though. But I'll still take Xander, probably in tiers. I don't know. That's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. If these ownerships are anything reflective of a tiers contest, then it might actually be Rory, since all 3 of these players. Since everybody gets 4 rounds, it might be Rory if you believe he is this unique off of the other 2 in a tiers contest. It's probably between Rory and Xander. My first thought is Xander, but depending on how much chalk I take, I might go Rory. Give me Xander to start. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to that. Tier 2, Morikawa, Cantlay, Ludwig, JT, and Sepp. For as much as I love Cantlay and him being the number 1 player in my rankings, I'm just very confident that Justin Thomas will rebound this week. So give me Justin Thomas in Tier 2. I like Sepp Straka a lot in Tier 2. I like Cantlay a lot in Tier 2. So if you play multiple tiers lineups, this is where I would start mixing and matching. But give me Justin Thomas in Tier 2. Tier 3, Sam Burns, Victor, Tommy Fleetwood, and Russell Henley. Give me Sam Burns. Yeah, give me Sam Burns. He's just hotter, and he seems like he is going to be more unique than Victor because it's between those 2. But give me Burns. Tier 4, Spawn, Keegan, Bobby Mack, Shane Lowry, Spieth, Hideki, Ben Griffin. No ifs, ands, or buts. Keegan might be worth a look, but give me Bobby Mack. No ifs, ands, or buts. I just really, really like Bobby Mack this week. Tier 5, Sung Jae, Pendrith, Siwoo, Cam Young, Tony Finau, English, and Scott. Ugh. I don't really like much in here. If you're not scared about the irons, I would go Sung Jae, but I understand if you're quite concerned with the irons. So if that's the case, it's probably Siwoo. Maybe even Cam Young. Give me Sung Jae. I'm not scared of the irons. I'm gonna bank on the Pete Dye historical performance. But if you're scared off with the irons because they have literally been the worst in the field, literally 72nd out of 72, then go Siwoo. And then finally, tier 6, we have Grazerman, Fitz, Nick Taylor, Bud Cauley, Hoagie, Wyndham Clark, and Dietrich. Bud Cauley is the only one that rated in the top half. Actually, Tom Hoagie's right at half, essentially. But Bud Cauley is the only one in the top half, so give me Bud Cauley in tier 6. This tier's construction goes Xander or Rory, 1A, 1B. Depends on how much uniqueness you want to get. Tier 2 is Justin Thomas. Cantley and Sepp Straka make strong arguments. Tier 3 is Sam Burns. Tier 4 is Bobby Mack. Tier 5 is Sung Jae or Siwoo. Maybe even Cam Young. Tier 6, Bud Cauley. Okay, let's start building some classic lineups. Figure out what style of lineups our fellow contestants are building and how we can try and build around them. So obviously, if I'm going to start with trying to make some chalky lineups, it starts with Scotty, considering he's at 40% owned. I wouldn't be surprised if he was 50% owned by the time this contest starts. And our fellow contestants seem like they're going to either Bud Cauley or Andrew Novak. I like Bud Cauley, but this is why I couldn't in good conscience recommend him in the 6Ks, because he is the most chalky player. Looks like Brian Harman in the low 7s. Might even actually be both Harry Hall and Brian Harman. Maybe this is Daniel Berger. This might be Cameron Young. But if we go Daniel Berger, it's Ben Griffin. This is a style of lineup that is going to be very, very popular. 104% cumulative ownership. It's pretty ugly. Yes, a lot of that is Scotty Scheffler, but still, this is how I envision majority of our fellow contestants building their Scotty lineups. And they very well might try to do a double 6 to try and squeeze in another top tier player. If they go Novak and Bud Cauley. Hey, good evening, Josh. Thanks for jumping in chat. It's good to see you. Hopefully you've had a good few weeks that I had to take away, and hopefully you had a good U.S. Open and are ready for the Travelers. I know one regular member is up in that area, but I can't remember. Is this close to your neck of the woods? I can't remember. Let me finish this lineup, Josh, and I'll answer that question, because I've got a pretty good one, I think. But if our fellow contestants seemingly are going double 6, then they can maybe squeeze in like a... I was trying to get something like a Victor in here for them. Maybe a Keegan. Yeah. If they go double 6, this might be more akin to what you're seeing. Maybe they come off of Berger and this comes up to maybe like a Victor. But this is another reason why I didn't like my Scotty lineups, because you were doing things like this, and it's just not where I want to be this week. So that's why I'm off of Scotty. I'll build a non-Scotty chalky lineup here in a second. My favorite play this week, even though he's a little bit more owned than I like, is Harry Hall, Josh. Love everything about Harry Hall this week. So there's the answer. There's the answer to your question. If our fellow contestants are not building Scotty lineups, looks like Xander, I'm going to use Colin Morikawa only because I'm not playing Colin at all. This gives them a little bit more savings as well. They could go something like Colin Morikawa down to maybe like a Sepp Straka, Keegan, Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, Daniel Berger, or Batia could also be in this. And this is Brian Harman. So it's not going to be nearly as much cumulative ownership just because you don't have the behemoth of 40% from Scotty. But make no mistake, if you're planning on not playing Scotty and you're going to build this style of lineup using majority of these players, you're not going to be very unique. You know, substitute Morikawa for Xander and move some of this money around, or Straka becomes Justin Thomas and whatnot. This is going to be a pretty popular style of lineup as well. So how are we going to do or get some uniqueness in a very limited field? You're high on Keegan. I was very high on Keegan last week. He played okay. I'm worried about this, Josh. 16.5% ownership. He's actually one of the more popular players on the slate. He is the most popular 8K player. So that gives me some concern. I mean, you see, he rated top 20 for me. I agree with the general sentiment. Like, I think Keegan is a good fit here, obviously from his win 2 years ago. But I am not pleased seeing 16.5% on Keegan. And there's enough down here, 100 less, Bobby Mack, that I like, that I don't have to use this chalk. But to get unique off of our fellow contestants, again, I'm not playing any Scotty Scheffler. None. But if I were going to, I gave you a couple names in the 6Ks that you could go to. First was Lucas Glover. I would actually take a big chance on Kevin Yu because I think he is going to be quite unique. And I do think the return form of ball striking will come back. So I think that's where you'll gain quite a bit on people. Lucas Glover's at what? 4.5? He's a little bit less unique. But this is how I would bookend my Scotty lineups. If you're willing to go double sixes, more power to you. I'm going to try to keep you from that. If you want to come off the Harry Hall and Brian Harman chalk in the low sevens, you can take a look at Tom Kim. I didn't mention it. Denny McCarthy's also down here at 7,000, who I don't hate. The only thing with Denny, like, for as great of a putter as he is, this is actually not one of his best surfaces. So that gives you some kind of pause. But, you know, otherwise, you're looking at, I'm just going to use Tom Kim. That's definitely not how you spell that. I'll use Tom Kim just to highlight the uniqueness factor. For me, this would be Harry Hall since they're the same price. I'm just highlighting the uniqueness here. And then you have some kind of wiggle room. You probably can't afford to take a 9. And this is why I don't like Scotty this week, because of the prohibitive pricing. I'd love basically everything in the 9Ks except for Ludwig, who I'm still going to use, but I'm just not extremely high on him. So if you go all the way down to, say, maybe Bobby Mack, you have 2 mid-sevens. You could go like Luke Clanton and Minwoo Lee, or Batia. We didn't talk about Batia. I kind of like Batia this week. And then I would take a chance on Luke Clanton. You know, this is quite lower in the ownership. Again, you just take away the behemoth of Scotty Scheffler, you're sitting at less than 50%. So again, I'm highlighting the uniqueness here, but you know, you start using a few players that are a little bit more higher owned, like if you went to Keegan, for example, Josh, like you're starting to creep up into the 90% and stuff, and that gets pretty rough. You're not going to be unique enough to really climb in your big GPPs. Because of that, these are the style of lineups that I've been building. Should I long shot Cam Davis? I'm nowhere near Cam Davis. I was joking with Gabe earlier in the week that I've officially opened Cam Davis season, but it's not this week. He generally plays better at this portion of the schedule, but it's not this week. I like the thought process there. Hold off on Cam Davis because he's going to be good here. I think it's either next week or in a couple weeks. So, but let me show you the style of lineups I'm building. I'm going what you would think of a traditional balanced lineup with a slight caveat. If I start Justin Thomas, who I'm really high on, this allows me to get super greedy in the nines. I can go Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, Victor. Like, I love doing this kind of start. Or Thomas, Straka, Hovland. Thomas, Straka, Burns. Straka, Burns, Hovland. Like, I'll even throw in Cantley. Now, understand, this is not in the same lineup, but I am using 3 of these 4 more often than not. Cantley, Burns, Hovland, Cantley, Thomas, Hovland, Thomas, Burns, Hovland. I'm mixing and matching 3 of those 4. I'll throw in a Ludwig every once in a while. I'll throw in a maybe a Russell Henley every once in a while. But really, I'm building what you would think of as a traditional start to a balanced lineup. I love Bobby Mack this week. So I'm trying to use as much Bobby Mack. And then I'm using Harry Hall. I'll use Brian Harmon. I'll use Tom Kim. I gave you a couple of 6K plays. But really, and I understand this is a couple hundred over, but this is going to be a lot of my core. Thomas, Straka, Burns, Hovland, Bobby Mack's in here, Harry Hall's in here. I'll use quite a bit of Harmon. If I come off of one of the top guys, say I come off of Hovland, I'll use Hall. I can, maybe squeeze in a Sung Jae or a Siwoo, and Aaron Rye, who rated out extremely well for me, things of that nature. But my core is along these lines. I'll actually move Harry Hall here, Bobby Mack, Victor. Like, I understand this lineup is 200 or 2,000 over, but this is my core. Mixing and matching a lot of these 3 of these 4. Get a Bobby Mack, get a low to mid 7, and Harry Hall. And those are the kind of lineups I'm building. Hey, Derek, good to see you. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. No apologies needed. I'm just glad you take some time out of your day to watch and listen. I'm sure you talked about my guy Tommy. Do you like him this week? He is chalky. Not as much as you would think. He's only 13%. I don't know. Nothing really stood out to me in the 8s other than Bobby Mack. And if I'm going to 8,900 Tommy, I would much rather just find 200 to 300 for the reasons I was just talking about, getting Burns and Hovland and Straka and JT and all that. Like, the irons have always been good. He's actually been good putting lately. I don't know. He's a lot like Lowry for me. I'm just kind of going to wait and see how he... I don't want to use recover, but how he performs after Oakmont. Hey, Rose. Yes, I am. I'm back at it. I was supposed to be back at it last week, and I had some we'll call equipment issues, I suppose, that I went through my whole show for the U.S. Open. Went through the entire thing, finished, stopped the stream or stopped the show, only to realize it didn't broadcast. So I was talking to the ether. It just didn't talk to anybody. That was fun and frustrating. But I am back at it. It is good to see you, Rose. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. So feel free to keep the questions coming, but I am a little bit over on time, and I want to make sure I hit the picks challenge. So the 2025 picks challenge with Gabe. I still have a 3-point lead, as Gabe jokingly put after we both sucked last week at the U.S. Open. Gabe and I both just did not do well at the U.S. Open, so I maintained my 3-point lead. I'm going to take Viktor Hovland as my winner. I kind of didn't know where to go. I could make an argument for Justin Thomas. Could make an argument for Sepp. I could make an argument for Bobby Mack. I just kind of went with Viktor Hovland, knowing that he's really, really hot right now, especially with his irons. But I just didn't. I wasn't confident in Scotty. I don't think Xander's all the way back yet. So I went with Victor. Gabe's going to take a very logical choice in Patrick Cantlay, even though Cantlay might have some mediocre results lately. He's been very good at TBC River Highlands. So he's going to go with Patrick Cantlay. Sorry, missed the early part of the show. Thoughts on Burns through Henley range. Love it. Love it. Just very quickly. Love everything about this. I'm using Burns, Hovland. I will sprinkle some Henley. I'm not using any Tommy just because I am so high on Sam Burns and Victor. I am extremely high on Justin Thomas and Sepp Straka as well. So I love this whole range right here. Maybe not the Fleetwood and Henley. And to make up for this, Tommy and Henley, I'm using Bobby Mack. So anyway, favorite plays. I talked about him all night. If Harry Hall does not play well, I am going to lose. I love Harry Hall. Love everything about him this week. You're going to see him on my betting card later this evening. I'm just going to play a whole lot of Harry Hall. Gabe's going to go with Rory, banking on the extreme uniqueness of Rory being, sub 10%. I'm going to fade Scotty Scheffler. Again, all of it is game theory. It has nothing to do with the player in of himself. Number one for a reason. But he is more than double the next projected ownership. I just feel like I'm going to gain way too much if Scotty struggles. And that's not a guarantee. I get that. But if Scotty finishes outside the top 10 or even, heaven forbid, if he finishes outside the top 15, I'm in a really, really good spot. So I'm going to fade Scotty Scheffler. Gabe's going to fade Sepp Straka. Again, makes a whole lot of sense after his really bad miscut at the U.S. Open. I think Sepp's going to rebound pretty well this week. So we'll see. Mad Scientist play. I'm not in love with it. Again, I don't like much in the 6Ks, but I'll throw out Kevin Yu as my Mad Scientist play. Gabe's going to go with Ricky Fowler. Fear of missing out, FOMO. I want to make sure I roster Luke Clanton a couple of times. Again, there's not a whole lot of sample size here, but everything that I see, I like the fit for TBC River Highlands. He plays his best when it's easy. In the very small sample size on bent, he's putt very well on bent. So I'm going to make sure I use some Luke Clanton. Gabe's going to use some Cameron Young. And then our wild card category for this week was top U.S. Open bounce back. I couldn't fit all of that into that little spot there, so hopefully you understand what I'm getting at. Top U.S. Open bounce back. We define that as a guy who missed the cut. So if you define that as somebody who, like Keegan, finished 30-something, then your definition and ours is just different. You can agree to disagree with us. But we're going to go with a guy who missed the cut at the U.S. Open who's going to perform well this week. I'm going to take Justin Thomas. I really like the fit here, having seen Justin Thomas top 10 the past two Travelers. I like his fit here. And Gabe is going to go with your guy, Derek, and he's going to take Tommy Fleetwood to be the top bounce back from a miscut at the U.S. Open. So I'll stick around for just a minute or two. I've went 15 minutes over, and Gabe's expecting me in his chat. But I don't mind sticking around if there are any questions. My answer to the poll question, which of these U.S. Open disappointments are you most confident in rebounding this week? If it isn't obvious, for me, I'm going to take Justin Thomas. It looks like the, I'll say general public or chat at large has tied Justin Thomas and Tommy Fleetwood. So it'll be interesting to see that. So yeah, what kind of lineups are you all building? Are you in agreement with me? Are you fading Scotty? Are you going to use him? And then try to find your uniqueness elsewhere. Hey Gabe, thanks for jumping in chat right at the end of the show. Take your time hanging out in here. I'll be over in your chat, as shortly after I shut down the stream. I just want to make sure I hit or get to all the questions if there are any. I had to give you credit, Gabe, that you phrased it the best, that after we both sucked last week, we're both going to try to get back on the right track. Seems like you and I are pretty similar with the exception of a couple of players. Sepp Straka most notably. I'm pretty high on him. It seems like you still want no part of him. So I'll be interested to hear what you and your chat have to say here momentarily, and that's a very good segue and a reminder to everyone in watching my show that if you haven't subscribed to Gabe's article, you really are missing out. Really can't recommend it enough. You would be able to get his projected ownerships earlier in the day on Wednesday. It comes out around 3 p.m. Eastern time. But always a lot of great information, not just on Wednesdays, but his regular article coming out on Sundays. And by subscribing to his article, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat as well. And go follow him over on social media, because that's where we post our detailed write-ups for the Picks Challenge. So I'm going to try and maintain my 3-point lead that I have. We'll see how that goes throughout the week this week. But I've got quite a few people to thank. I need to thank Phil, Josh, Derek, Rose, Gabe for jumping in chat. Very, very much appreciated. And thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. Always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Last week wasn't a complete disaster, but it was pretty bad. So I'm going to try and get back on the right foot for the last signature event, the Travelers Championship. So thanks again for all of the support and for everyone jumping in chat and participating in the poll question. It's always fun. For all of the wagers you've made this week for the Travelers Championship, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Travelers Championship, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.